Welcome to the Nerds Now Playing podcast, recorded at the Feely Creative Podcast Studio in Salina, Kansas. I'm Devin.
And I'm Tim.
And we're going to talk about a number of things today, including our main review of Thor, Love and Thunder.
Oh, I am ready to dish on that movie.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be really interested to know what you have to say about that. But first, we like to do a segment of what have you been watching. So, Tim, what have you been watching this last week?
Well, a few different things. I just finished last night watching the Guillermo del Toro show on Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities. It is an 8-episode horror anthology show. I've been watching this over the course of a couple months with a buddy of mine online. So once a week we watch one episode. And there's probably 2 standout episodes for me that I really like. And the last one, oh man, it punched me emotionally.
And what's the name of the series again?
Cabinet of Curiosities.
And that's on where can you find
it's on
that
Netflix.
Netflix. I think I have seen previews for that, but I've never actually checked it out.
But as far as other things, I finally started watching The Boys.
The Boys. I have watched that too. There's 3 seasons of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I finished watching that maybe last year, so I'm eagerly waiting a 4th season.
Yeah, I just started it this week, and I've already made it through the first season, and I'm already I think I am 2 episodes into season 2.
That two episodes in season 2. Now that show is pretty wild.
It is extremely wild and very violent.
So that show is kind of, would you describe that as like a satire of superhero genre? Or?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's basically saying, what if superheroes were just all terrible people?
Everyone has their own unique superpower,
Mm-hmm.
and it does. Homelander is one of the. He's like the Superman kind of type of character, type of superhero. But he's not a great person.
Oh no, he's a terrible person.
And what I like about the show is he has all these crazy powers, but he uses them in a way that you would kind of expect somebody with actual superpowers to use them. And it's not all for good.
Yeah.
Usually it's for disturbingly bad. Some of the craziest deaths, on-screen deaths that I've seen in a show. Crazy stuff that lasering.
There's a moment where he pretty much lasers down an airplane.
Eyes, and he lasers people, kills a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, it's not well.
But
and you have other characters like there's the Invisible Man guy who his skin's carbon, I guess. But he's a pervert, and he definitely doesn't use his power for good.
that show, it takes superheroism and commercializes it.
Yeah,
they're what is the company in there?
Vought Industries.
Yeah. So they're kind of like being a superhero franchise.
Yeah. That's that. I could see, if we had superheroes, I could totally see that being a thing. Especially with how capitalist and money obsessed we are in America. That would definitely happen.
And so that's one of the things I think is really fun about that show is they treat the superheroes like products almost. They have to. It's a big marketing thing, and so it's a very, very cool show. One that I'd recommend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you're just starting season 2.
Correct.
I don't want to spoil anything for that show, but you're in for a real treat of messed up proportion come season 3 on that.
Oh yeah, that's probably going to be my weekend plan, is just to kind of binge through the rest of season 2 and get as far into 3 as I can.
Nice. Well, I have been watching a show on Netflix also called Perfect Match. Have you heard of this?
I have not. This sounds like a dating show.
This is a dating show. I don't know if you watch dating shows much.
No, not really.
But, I didn't think I did, but lately with my girlfriend, we do watch some of these dating shows. The last one that we had watched was Love is Blind, and these are the same showrunners and same creators. They've made the show called Perfect Match, which is when couples prove their capability or compatibility to gain the power to make or break matches of other people in a strategic and seductive dating competition. That was a brief description I pulled up there. But what they do is they match these couples, and these people came from previous dating type shows.
So like The Bachelor and
one's on Netflix. Which I have not seen. And I don't know if it's a dating show actually, but there's a show called The Mole. And I don't know what the contestants do, and I just know that some of the cast people on this show are from The Mole. They're from Love Is Blind seasons 1 through 3.
Gotcha.
There's another dating show I like to think, or some show there's another show called Too Hot to Handle. So basically, you have all these people on the show who are all like gorgeous people. They're very attractive, fit people, and they have to match up with each other. They're finding the perfect match, and because when they at the end of the night, I think there's maybe 8 couples. I think I actually don't remember. Maybe there's 6, maybe there's not as many as 8. But there's always going to be a scenario where there's like 2 extra men or women at the end of the night, and everyone has to partner up. Anyone who doesn't find a match, they have to go home.
Okay.
So there's this drama in the show from that I think is just me and my girlfriend can't stop watching. Every episode that ends, we have to like start the next one. It's kind of crazy. It's watching these terrible people, and most of them are terrible people.
I can believe it.
And what's crazy about the show, we don't even know what the competition's leading up to win. Like, it's not like there's an obvious cash prize, but they're just trying to find their perfect match. It's a crazy show. Everyone acts ridiculous in it.
Now, when you say competition, like, are there actual like games that they had to participate in, or is it just like a series of dates?
They do go on dates, but there are competitions. So they have to win a competition between the couples, because the winner who wins the competition gets to go to the boardroom, and there's a table on there where they get to then have the power to match somebody else up with someone else. So they get to do 2 matches. And usually, depending on what they alternate between choosing 2 more men to come into the group to mingle around and match up with, or they get to choose with 2 women to come into the group and match them up. And so that creates like little power dynamics and stuff. They know like one couple is getting along very well with each other, but they'll like try to create conflict between the 2 by matching him or her up with a new person, and sometimes those new people they start to they click, and then they decide to actually match up between themselves instead of going on with some other couple. It's a ridiculous show. It's very stupid. It's really fun trash TV though, but we can't seem to get enough of watching these.
So are you big into, like, that's a reality TV show style? I've never personally been super big into reality TV. I like the only exceptions to those that I have found myself enjoying have been Survivor. I like Survivor. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of it, but I like what I've seen. And The Great British Baking Show.
Yeah. Well, when Survivor first came out, we watched that a lot as a family. At least season 1 through 3, maybe.
Yeah.
But then that dropped off for us. But I didn't think I watched a lot of reality TV, but these dating shows are so kind of there's a disturbing element amongst them. We're like, as somebody watching the show, you can identify, that guy's a creep. That guy is kind of messed up. She's going to stab you in the back, but they don't know it amongst themselves. But the Love Is Blind is one we watch, but where they match up couples where they don't see each other. They're put in rooms that have like a
divider.
Like a divider. They can talk to each other, but they have to decide to like propose to somebody based on some dates where they can't actually see each other.
Oh, interesting.
So we watched that one. That one was has 3 seasons. That was crazy. But Perfect Match is the latest one on Netflix of trash dating shows that we're watching that we can't get our eyes off. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend it, but we can't stop watching it.
Before we get into our review, I think we have one other thing to talk about, which is, as we mentioned, the topic for today's movie is Thor: Love and Thunder, so superheroes.
Superheroes.
So, Devin, do you have a favorite superhero?
I think if I were to just say the number one, I think I was trying to think of something a little more unique, but I guess my favorite is my favorite, and that's going to be Batman probably.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I can't not like Batman. I've liked the animated series growing up, and I think they have some of the better movies overall. I like the Tim Burton ones, but the Christopher Nolan ones are really great.
Yeah.
But I really like the character too, especially when he's doing his detective work and stuff. I think Batman's probably my favorite overall.
That's a hard one to beat. I don't know that I have a specific, like, definitive favorite. Because I like, I'm partial to like the X-Men. I like Wolverine. I like Nightcrawler. But for a long time, I was really partial to the character Ben Grimm, who plays the Thing, or who is the Thing for the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah.
Especially because, like, as a larger person, you don't see a lot of representation of larger people a lot of times, and so that kind of resonated with me with that character. So I always liked him. My dad is a Superman fan. He likes Superman. But as far as like Marvel versus DC, like in terms of like the characters, I will say like DC, my favorite character is probably Martian Manhunter.
Martian Manhunter. I'm not familiar with Martian Manhunter. Explain that to me.
Did you ever watch the animated Justice League cartoon?
Is there more than one, or is there one definitive one?
Well, there's like one definitive. It's just called the Justice League, and then there's a sequel series which is Justice League Unlimited.
The answer is probably going to be no.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. So Martian Manhunter is, in fact, a Martian. He is one that he's got like green skin. And he has the ability that he can kind of like phase through walls. He can change what he looks like to like blend in with humans. There's something about that character that just really resonates with me, and I find him fascinating.
Now this is a superhero. Is he the hero then?
Yes, he is one of the heroes. He's a member of the Justice League.
And was he? What's his history? When was that? When did he come out? Was he part of like the original Justice League, or is he part of like a more of newer creation?
As I'm not super well versed in the comics, I don't know if he was part of necessarily like the original. But I believe he's been a part of the Justice League for a long time. I would imagine at least since the 80s. I would guess, but not having read the comics, I don't know for sure. But he's probably my favorite in terms of like DC. I mean, I love Batman. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but there's just something about Martian Manhunter I really love.
Well, and it's really hard to pick a favorite superhero, I think. I went through the list because you mentioned X-Men. I like a lot of the X-Men.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also have stuff like Watchmen.
The Watchmen, yeah, I like that a lot.
Which I love Rorschach. Although, like, the Watchmen, kind of like The Boys, it's much more gritty. And, like, there's things that like you can definitely like about these characters, but there are also things that make them unlikable.
If you have super strength, like a lot of these superheroes do, someone's bound to get hurt.
Oh, definitely.
And what The Boys does, and well, the Watchmen to a lesser extent, but the violence is there. But they kind of showcase that. They make that part of the problem for these superheroes. So that makes, like, in the case of The Boys, really interesting. The Watchmen has different types of like societal takes, social takes on that one. But
I still need to watch the Watchmen show. The movie I've seen, and I like the movie.
Great show. The show is really good. I'd recommend watching that. That was fantastic. Also on HBO. Let's turn our focus on a different franchise, the Thor franchise from the MCU. All right, so let's get into our review of Thor: Love and Thunder. How about that?
That sounds like a great plan.
All right, so Thor: Love and Thunder. I have a little synopsis that I pulled up here. Let me read it a little bit so we have a nice little recap of what this thing is even about. So Thor embraces on... No, I'm sorry. He doesn't embrace anything. Thor embarks on a journey unlike anything he's ever faced. A quest for inner peace. However, his retirement gets interrupted by Gore, the God Butcher, a galactic killer who seeks the extinction of the gods. To combat the threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, Korg, ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who, to his surprise, inexplicably wields the magic hammer. Together, they set out on a harrowing cosmic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God Butcher's vengeance. This movie is also directed by Taika Waititi. It is a direct sequel to, or I don't know if it is a direct sequel.
I would say it's a direct sequel to Ragnarok, at least.
So coming off of Ragnarok, same director, has kind of some similar vibes going on with those two movies. But yeah, I have not seen this one. You had seen it before, and this is like
I saw this one in theaters.
This is like a second watch for you. So I watched this recently. Overall, like it's an interesting movie. I so seen it not in theaters. I saw it kind of late, so I kind of saw some of the discourse around it. I, however, kind of like I didn't mind it so much. I thought I was going to go into this seeing kind of some of the Marvel movies lately have been a little bit kind of not as interesting to me.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a formula that's just kind of used over and over again, and you could say that for this movie as well. And I think that's kind of fair. But I didn't think it was like the train wreck that I was kind of worried about. And because I went into watching Multiverse of Madness, the Doctor Strange movie, and I came out of that not very like, it was very meh for me.
Yeah.
There was a lot left to be desired on that movie. This movie has some definite interesting problems in it. Overall, I do think is like kind of it's entertaining enough. I wouldn't say this is top tier Marvel happening here, but it's okay. It's fine, I think. I don't know if I will be checking out again, but there's good sequences in this movie that we'll get into. But the overall, I think, is fine. The character of Thor, I don't know if you could say he like changes very much throughout the course of this movie at all, but
I mean, he's kind of on a journey of self-discovery, sort of, kind of, especially after the events of the previous films, like after Ragnarok, when he loses, Asgard, and he's lost his brother like 3 times, and obviously like Jane Foster and him broke up at some point in the past. I guess he's trying to figure out where he needs to be, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like he overcomes any like big emotional change or like character development.
So what are your thoughts on the overall movie then?
Overall, as I mentioned in a previous podcast, I'm not a fan of this movie at all. Like there are things about it that could be that are likable to a certain degree. Like there's a moment in the film, like late in the film, where they visit, I think it's called the Shadow Realm, where like it's kind of like this absence of color and it's in black and white except for their weapons, weirdly enough. From like a technical aspect, I like that particular set and that sequence because I like seeing the how they blended the use of black and white and a little bit of color here and there. Like from a technical aspect, I'm interested to see how they achieved that exactly. And I will say, like, I do think Christian Bale as Gore, like, he was pretty creepy. Like, he's sufficiently creepy, especially in that particular part of the movie. And I did like that sequence because it brought a little bit more depth to him, or just like it made him a little bit more menacing. But overall, he's not that intimidating as a villain. It feels like he was underutilized in this film,
very much so.
Because like they didn't shoot any sequences. Like he's called the God Butcher, so he's like killing gods and like trying to like. I mean, his ultimate goal out of vengeance is to destroy all of them, which is a very Kratos opinion. For those who are unfamiliar, Kratos is from the God of War franchise. I highly recommend that franchise, so go play it. At least the new 2 games are fantastic. But like all that happens off screen. So like he doesn't come across as menacing. I had the same problem with Scarlet Witch in Multiverse of Madness. Like having seen the show before that movie, like I don't know, it just didn't seem like that character, like she didn't, or Gore didn't like earn is not the right word, but didn't earn like the level of like menacing, like overall villain that they could.
Well, and so I looked up. So I didn't look up, but one of the themes that are kind of present in this movie, according to Taika Waititi, He has wanted to explore universal themes about love and loss and our place in the world, at least mostly from Thor's perspective.
Right.
And that theme starts off pretty strong, I think. When the movie opens, we're opening up in a desert. I don't know if it's a desert plant, but I don't know where it is, but it is a desert setting. Gore is with his daughter, and they're not doing very well.
No, they are dying very much of like hunger and thirst. It seems like.
There's maybe been a famine of some kind with their crops. It didn't yield very well or something. They are starving, and they don't have they must be in some kind of a drought or something. They open up with Gore praying to his god. His god, I had the name of it, I thought. Do you remember the name of the god?
I don't know if the name was actually mentioned in the film. Like it seemed like it was kind of like a sun god to me, like because he had this big kind of headpiece that was like kind of sun rays. Also
Rapu. Rapu.
Okay, I'd say Rapu. I assume. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with Gore from the comic. Like I know he's a big deal in the comics.
Yeah,
he's like a major opponent to Thor in from what little I've researched. Yeah, so at the beginning of the film, Gore's daughter dies. After he prays like for help, and he manages to stumble across where the gods are on this planet, and it's like tropical paradise.
Yeah,
and he very quickly finds out that that his gods at least don't care about their subjects at all.
They did not. I think, didn't he mention that if he dies, he will go to Valhalla or something?
No, Valhalla is like Norse mythology.
Oh, okay, so that was not mentioned at all. Then I'm misremembering.
Not at the beginning. I don't think it would have. I think the god said like when you die, you die. There's nothing.
Yeah, I think something along those lines. And because one of those things was the trigger for Gore.
Yeah.
But I like the setup though, because I liked Christian Bale in this movie gives a great performance as Gore. And I do think he's underutilized greatly in it. But I kind of like the setup of the movie because I feel like, I understood enough with Gore because his daughter dies. His God that he prayed to does not care at all and kind of basically in some way spits in his face about it.
Oh, yeah. It's like this massive loss of faith in everything. And like at that point, he has nothing left. And so this, whatever, I believe it's called the Necrosword.
Yep.
Kind of chooses him. He's got nothing left, and he manages to kill that god.
Yeah.
And then basically makes a vow that because he's lost everything, and because this god is clearly no good to him, that he's just going to end all gods.
Yeah.
Because he sees none of them as being good people. Which, I mean, you can make a case for that depending on the god, like because they feel like they're superior because I guess for all intents and purposes. They are to a certain degree, like in terms of like power, not necessarily in like their demeanor or how they treat people.
Yeah, I at least like the setup. So I like that Gore setup with him and his daughter. So I thought that was kind of a little bit of a strong start, a little bit different than I had seen them from previous MCU movies, I believe. Because I think with the MCU movies, one of the bigger issues is like having kind of weak villains or like a little one-dimensional, I think.
Or at least after Thanos, anyway.
Yeah. And while Gore, I don't think was the most fleshed out, I thought it was a pretty kind of a decent start. So pretty happy with the beginning. Things go kind of like weird bonkers directions after that we get the Guardians of the Galaxy are in here.
Yeah, they make an appearance, which I don't think they were really necessary in this film. I feel like they could have done a better job of maybe developing, or they could have used that time to further develop Gore rather than using Guardians, because like Guardians they have 2 movies already on their own and they're about to get a third. Like, I know people like those characters, and I guess I can see like Thor bumming around with them a bit just to go around and try and find himself. But like, they themselves were underutilized in this set piece. Like, I feel like they could have just had Thor on his own doing these things without them being there.
I agree. They didn't interact with the Guardians like super much, but they did kind of annoy Star-Lord a lot. And he was really eager to leave that planet, leave Thor. I kind of like some of that interaction a little bit. They had a fun little sequence of they were stopping this some kind of an invasion attack on this other alien civilization, and leading up to Thor saving them. But to do that, he actually causes more destruction than probably even the invading alien race, which kind of made me think a little bit of Team America, World Police.
Oh yeah,
a little bit.
Well, that's one of those things like they don't really address a lot in superhero movies or cartoons. All the collateral damage that happens, which is something that I think they do talk about a little bit in The Boys as well. But like often they end up destroying so much, and you never really know how that stuff pans out for the people who like whose vehicles are destroyed or their homes are destroyed. Like they never talk about that. And in this case, like he destroyed an entire temple.
Yeah.
Which was sacred to these people that he was trying to help. And so like I mean you never know what happens to them after this, but and they make a joke out of the moment as they do with everything in this movie, which is a problem I have. But that collateral damage is just insane.
So then after that, talk to us what happens after that.
I believe so. Thor ends up being gifted these stupid screaming goats. If there's one thing in this movie that I dislike the most, it's the goats.
So the goats, I didn't like them. Like it was kind of like, okay, they're there, they're present. Taika Waititi there's like a humor problem with this movie though.
Yes, there is.
Every couple minutes there's like a new kind of a riffed joke that's playing, and the goats are a part of that. The goats come into play several times with their screaming, and
like it's funny that when you first see them, like that's fine, but like they make that a center, like I don't, not centerpiece, but like it comes back like 5 more times, and to me it's just annoying. But like I to kind of bounce off what you're saying, it's one of the main reasons why I have a hard time with the Marvel franchise right now in general.
Yeah,
is because every 5 minutes or less than that, there's a joke. Like they have a serious situation, even at the end of the film. There's a joke during that interaction.
Yeah, there's
like
a
you
lot
could
of
be
jokes.
using that time instead of trying to make people laugh for like 1 second to develop a character that's stronger and more interesting instead of just throw like a throwaway joke. Like that's honestly the main reason why I have a big problem with this movie.
So I'm trying to remember trying to remember between so for example, Jane Foster, we check in with her, or do we check in with her? I
believe it kind of shifts to her, and you find out that she has cancer,
yes,
stage 4 cancer, and so she can't find a cure, and so she kind of ends up, I guess, Mjolnir, which Thor's previous hammer, kind of whispers to her more or less. And she goes to looking into like the lore, like Norse mythology, and finds that it's supposed to give her, I believe it was like great health. And so she ends up becoming the mighty Thor or Lady Thor by being able to wield Mjolnir. And it does make her powerful and take away the sickness, but only while she's in Thor form. And it makes her weaker as a human.
I thought that's kind of interesting. I kind of like that they bring Jane Foster in that way. She was not in Ragnarok, correct?
No, I don't believe so. I think she was only in the first film.
And wasn't the last time we saw her was a post-credit sequence in the second Thor movie?
Probably so.
I think that was the case. So we hadn't seen her in a while. But I kind of liked how they brought her back in this way. She actually has like something wrong with her with having cancer. So she's definitely very sick. And I kind of liked how they tied that in with the hammer being able to, by making her the mighty Thor, she was able to not be affected by the cancer, although it still has her body still can't fight the cancer.
Right.
Or so it's not like ultimately making her better. It's like a temporary thing. But I kind of liked how they brought her back with that.
I will say like that is one of the positive things as well. Like I like her being brought back, and that her just kind of seeing her own personal struggle with like it's hard when faced with something that you just can't do anything about, especially for something like her character is a scientist.
Yeah.
And so they're all about like trying to find a solution to this thing, and you just kind of have to accept that there's not much you can do. And so I do like that element of her being brought back, but again with her, like they also make a joke out of her trying to come up with catchphrases at some point in the film,
which happens often. And before I watched this movie, I watched an extended scene of from a moment in the movie, and they were doing the catchphrase things, and I think it worked a little bit better in the movie overall, because on the scene that I watched, they just joked the whole 3 minutes of the scene. Yeah. I was like, oh, is this a whole movie of this? I think it flowed a little better watching the actual movie, but there's parts where she has cancer, and that's serious, but there's a lot of goof happening around.
Yeah.
And so is her cancer really that? What am I supposed to feel about it?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at as well with that. Like, it makes you want to feel bad for her and like connect, like have empathy for her, but it just kind of throws that away as well with the jokes. But kind of moving forward into the movie, so then Gore ends up coming to New Asgard, which is on Earth, and wreaks havoc with his weird, creepy shadow monsters, and basically ends up kidnapping a bunch of Asgard's kids, which kind of sets the main goal for later in the film, which is Thor and the group have to go and try and rescue these kids, as well as not letting Gore do what he ultimately plans to do, which is find a way to kill all the gods, like in one shot, basically. You kind of find the centerpiece for that ends up being Thor's new weapon, which is the axe, which also weirdly apparently has its own personality.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now, like I don't think that was something that was in the previous films.
So the movie's dealing with like love and loss. Thor lost not only Jane, they explore their relationship broke up. They also have his hammer, Mjolnir.
He lost that as well because that was busted up, and that happened in Ragnarok. The previous, it was his sister. I don't recall the character name, but basically like the goddess of death or more something like that. Basically like catches his hammer and then like breaks it in half or shatters it to pieces. So like he no longer has the hammer, and so like they make the axe. But so yeah, I mean there is loss there. Like I do like them exploring Jane and his relationship a little bit, at least being able to see that kind of develop slightly. I mean, even if it was only in a flashback.
Yeah.
That was interesting to see, and they did. I mean, while some of that was treated as a joke as well, there were serious moments.
Yeah, there
within that section.
And with the when Gore attacks New Asgard with his shadow monsters and stuff. What I thought was a couple things that I thought was interesting. So Jane and Thor had been broken up for a while, and they hadn't seen each other for some time. I kind of liked. I wish they explored it more, but like they did kind of talk about like since they've broken up, now they're seeing each other again. That awkwardness. That seeing your ex for the first time in a while, and they're like doing some really cool stuff, and like I kind of like that dynamic. That was kind of a good character thing, development that I liked between the two. With them being broke up, she's living her best life. Well, she's not, but she's doing a pretty good job as Mighty Thor. She's like, there's no problem.
Yeah.
Some other things to note on that. That battle, I liked it a lot. There's a lot of great special effects in this movie, and that scene I thought had some really good effects with like the hammer going through some of the shadow monsters.
Oh yeah, because it breaks apart almost like bullets.
Which I thought, yeah, like bullets. So I thought there's some really cool stuff on that. Jane using the hammer was really kind of cool to see that being done. So this movie has some really good special effects. I also think it has some really bad ones that I think we'll talk about here in a second. But I really like that dynamic of them being broken up and them patching things up or working through that a little bit. So they do kind of have that theme of that. Now we talked about the children were taken.
Yes.
And so they have to rescue them. They're kept where? The Shadow Realm?
I think, yeah, that ends up being the place. Like they're kept in this weird, almost like living cage thing that Gore made, or at least it was alive at some point. and it's definitely like on the way to the Shadow Realm, and eventually in the Shadow Realm.
So what's interesting? So Jane has cancer, and so the children are taken under uh, the king's
Oh yeah, King
rule.
Valkyrie.
King
Yeah.
Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. I think is really one thing I don't like about this movie. So they're dealing with that issue. Tessa Thompson is the king of New Asgard, and the kids are kidnapped, but the urgency isn't really there, right?
Yeah,
Like I
it
never
doesn't
felt.
really feel like it's as big an issue.
There's a part where Tessa Thompson and please help me out here, Tim. The name of the rock guy,
Oh, Korg,
Korg.
who is
Gosh,
also voiced by Taika Waititi.
they're singing that song together, right, in the boat.
Oh yeah, when Korg is just the face.
Yeah, I think for
Yeah,
being a king and having all your kids taken, she didn't seem all that
worried.
invested in that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like there wasn't really a sense of urgent. Like the biggest like urgency there was just to get them back so that Gore could not do what he was on his way to do. Um, yeah, it just didn't feel like it was as big much of a serious issue as it should have been.
Now, so talking about Gore, like, I like Christian Bale's performance. Now, I think he was definitely a super huge highlight, and I think he was underutilized because when we checked in with him, the beginning had a good setup for him, and then the rest of it was just him being menacing
Yeah.
with kids. We don't want the kids to die. Thor trying to rescue them, but we didn't really get much more out of that until maybe the ending of it. And so the themes of the love and loss, I don't know, it's kind of hit and miss for me a little bit. Didn't really fully connect with me with Gore.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the sense of loss I get, like as it was established in the beginning, but nearly I can't quite get a lead on him. Like there's a moment where he was talking to the kids,
Yeah.
and trying to be just creepy and weird. Like I will say, like overall, his performance is fun. I love Christian Bale. I think he's a fantastic actor, and definitely underutilized here. But there were some choices that he made in like his vocal delivery, where it was either really weird and like almost kind of dark and scratchy, kind of like Batman voice, where he's like being threatening,
Yeah.
and moments where he's like a normal human, like laughing and just it. I don't know it. I don't know how to feel about that choice.
Yeah, interesting choices there. I like that he was just chewing up the scenery when he was on. I just wish there was kind of more interjection with him and with Thor maybe throughout. Like they had
Yeah.
more conversation or something. Like we were talking about The Last of Us, and we're seeing each character's protagonist's point of view. It'd be good to get a little bit more of that other than just Gore going around killing everything.
Yeah, I would
killing
agree.
all
Like
all the gods.
Yeah, they definitely needed more interactions where either they were like talking, like trying to talk it out by saying like, why are you doing this? It would be nice to have like not that I want like another like big villain monologue per se, but like at least some kind of interaction that gives more context to them. Because as I understand it, in the comics, and from what little research I know, they were actually a pretty like big rivalry. Because like I think there was one that I read about where they actually had to have like Thor had to get two different other Thors from different timelines to fight with him to defeat Gore. So like one from the past, himself from the current, and like old man Thor from the future, all had to team together to try and take Gore down because he was supposed to be that big of a deal. And especially with the necro sword that he wields, has supposed to have the ability to kill a god, which is a huge deal and why the gods fear it. In this film, it just doesn't feel like they really made that it doesn't feel like that connection is really made, or that he's particularly menacing. Like he's creepy, but it doesn't feel like he's as big a deal as he should be. And maybe that's because they spend so much focusing on Thor and not on Gore.
Yeah, so interesting villain that they could have really had a home run with, but they did not. At least in my opinion, I don't think it was as strong as it could have been.
Yeah.
The overall movie, I guess I mostly enjoyed it. It's kind of, I think, harmless, but it wasn't as annoying or I really I put this above Multiverse of Madness. I think a little bit. I talked a little bit about the visual effects. other than being a green screen movie.
Which pretty much all the Marvel movies are at this point. Like there's very few practical effects.
Some of the visual effects I thought were really good, like the attack on old Asgard or New Asgard, excuse me, was pretty good with those creature designs. Then they also have like the floating head kid who
Heimdall's son, Axel,
who talks to Thor, and really cheap looking. You go from really good visual effects to really cheap, not great looking stuff. It's a little bit jarring for me, a little bit.
Well, it's kind of like that in Multiverse of Madness at the very end where they have like the third eye.
Yeah,
that just looks like they use the clone tool.
Uh-huh.
Like it just looks terrible.
Well, so overall, I didn't mind Thor: Love and Thunder. Not sure if I would revisit that again. Sounds like you're a little bit more on the negative side.
This being my second time, and I should emphasize this by saying, so most of the MCU I've seen only like one time. Like I have not gone back and rewatched them, with the exception of I think I've seen the first Avengers twice. Once on my own or with friends, and then I watched it at my parents' house and introduced them to it. And I think that's the only other one I'd seen twice. So I've now seen this one twice, which is a little insulting to me, I feel like. Just in terms of the ones I haven't seen, because there are better ones I could be watching more often. I'm not a fan of this one. I know, like, we were talking, and you were part of this conversation. I just kind of overheard one of our coworkers, I guess, enjoyed this a lot more, and one of our friends does. But our coworker felt that it was, I guess, the comics, in their words, are goofy. And so I guess they leaned into the goof and tried to emulate that with this movie. I don't think that's the vibe that, this movie is goofy as hell, but I don't think that's what they were going for. So I don't feel like my viewpoint is necessarily wrong by not enjoying it.
And if there's any viewers out there that has more clarification on that, because I have not read the comics, I don't know if that's super obvious, but I have not read the comics, so I'm not really sure how they play Thor off. Because I think it would be easier to make him more serious in the comics as a god superhero than in the movies. There's kind of, I don't know, being a god is just different. I think.
I don't know. I think there's plenty of superhero things in the comics that are serious enough. All of them probably have their areas of goofiness. I mean, look at the early Batman; it's pretty goofy. But I don't. It just feels to me like, and this is one thing I was watching a video last night that talked about this, and I think it crystallizes why this movie doesn't do it for me. Is that not only has Marvel become so formulaic with the way they do things and with all the green screen, and right now the biggest problem, which is too much humor, it doesn't, even seeing the trailer, it doesn't excite me. It doesn't leave me wanting to go oh man, I really got to go see this movie. It just, that level of excitement that there was, back when they were really building up the MCU and building up to the Avengers with all these different movies. Seeing the trailer for the first Avengers, I'm not going to say it was necessarily mind blowing, but it was a huge deal in terms of filmmaking and movies in general. And I want that excitement to happen right now. And I feel like we've just transitioned out of Phase 4 into Phase 5 with Quantumania. And, with all the TV shows, and which was most of Phase 4, and now with Phase 5 into the movies, nothing I'm seeing is really getting me pumped to go see. It doesn't feel like they are taking risks.
Right.
And I want that. I want that back. I want to be excited to go see these movies. And I mean, I will still go see them because I've invested this much time into the MCU now that I will see it through, but it doesn't leave me super excited to see it.
Yeah. I've probably definitely, the Avengers was building up to something, and seeing that team up in the first Avengers movie was fun for that reason. I've had some second watches on that, and I don't think it is as strong as I had remembered it. But this movie, I'm not sure what it's ultimately building up to. If I know Kang is kind of going to be one of the future.
He's the main big bad for Phase 5. Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how Thor might play a part in that, interweave him back into that kind of story. This movie I thought was fine, had some good performances. We didn't even talk about Russell Crowe being in there.
That's true.
as
So
Zeus.
there is a moment where they go to, I believe it's Omnipotent City,
Yep.
which is where I guess most of the gods spend time, or like it's like it's
They
almost
just
like a
chill.
vacation spa.
They just chill.
Which I will say, like Russell Crowe, I'm not in love with necessarily his portrayal. I don't think he did a bad job. I just don't know that it was. I don't know if they could have picked someone. Maybe it's the joke thing still. They just leaning too much into that it distracts me. I thought he did okay as Zeus. There is like maybe this is teasing for the next Thor movie, but they teased at the very end, like during the after credits or mid credits. Zeus being alive still, because there's a moment in the film where they throw Zeus's weapon back at him.
Yep.
And he's dead. Quote unquote for the viewers, for those who are listening. And you find out he's still alive, and so he basically tells Hercules to go hunt down Thor.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would be interesting to see what they would do with that, but I will say, like, of all the MCU, the Thor movies are the least memorable for me.
Yeah.
Like none of them have done it for me, really. Like just they don't seem that interesting. Like I love Norse mythology, but on him as a hero.
Yep. Very Well, that was our kind of a review for Thor: Love and Thunder. Do you have any little small trivia bits?
Yeah, I've got a few. So do you know what the budget for this film was?
I have no idea.
So the budget for this film was
it
250. Pardon?
Was it godly?
I've seen other films that have more of a godly budget. At least I think so. This was $250 million.
Dang, $250 million.
I mean, that's still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
That's a lot of money. More than I have.
But there have been films that cost like billions.
Yeah.
Or I mean, like the new Lord of the Rings show was like a couple billion, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't think so. I know it was really expensive. I would say 500 million for some reason. I don't know. Billion seems like.
According to our producer, it was 715 million for the Amazon show.
Oh.
So this, I mean, that's still a lot. I guess maybe no movie has reached $1 billion.
Well, you do have to if it costs, that might be the production cost, $250 million. Then you have to add add marketing cost to that.
Well, that's true. That's fair. But then as far as like the box office, this movie made $761 million worldwide. $343 million of that was in the U.S. and Canada. So it definitely made back its budget by at least twice. Which I'm not surprised by. I mean, kind of like me, like enough people are invested in the MCU that they're going to go see it. And I don't know how they calculate, those who are watching it on Disney Plus, because a lot of these now go to Disney Plus. It did well, certainly. But as far as like other things go, so another neat trivia bit. Did you know that most of Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor's family, is in this movie?
Really?
So two of his sons, Sasha and Tristan, there's a sequence at the very beginning where you see like young Thor running in the battle.
Yeah.
So those were his sons.
Okay.
And then his daughter, India Rose Hemsworth, plays the character Love, or Gore's daughter.
That was his daughter?
Yes, his actual daughter. And then his brother Luke Hemsworth plays a version of Thor. There is a moment in New Asgard where you see these actors portraying the events of Ragnarok. So the guy who was playing Thor in that as an actor is actually Luke Hemsworth.
Okay. You said it was a Hemsworth when we were watching it.
Yes.
And I couldn't remember the younger brother's name.
I didn't remember. I don't know the whole Hemsworth family.
Chris Hemsworth, and
this one's Luke. There's another one.
There is, yeah.
I don't remember. Liam.
Oh, yeah, Liam. Liam is his name.
That's right. And Liam's made a decent career for himself, I think.
Yeah, and he's going to be taking over the role of Geralt.
Oh, Geralt for The Witcher.
Yes.
That's it. Okay. That's another
worse.
show I've not actually got into, or the games. I haven't gotten into those.
You know who was also in that play thing? I read Sam Neill was one of those characters.
Same.
Sam Neill.
He played one of the characters in that. Was he Odin?
I don't know. According to the internet, he was also in that, but I'm not sure. I could not.
He was unrecognizable then.
Yeah.
If he was.
Uh-huh.
Interestingly, Matt Damon was also in that. Apparently uncredited.
Yep.
He played Loki in that little section.
I want to see that movie.
The movie where he plays Loki.
Yeah, I want to see that movie. I just want to see the play version.
Yeah, but who will Ben Affleck play?
Mjolnir?
He'll play Thor's hammer.
Yeah,
I would watch. I would watch that.
Yep.
And one other one that, as far as like Thor's or Hemsworth's family, there's a moment early on in Love and Thunder where you see where Korg the Rock guy mentions like past loves of Thor, and there's one you see like a wolf woman. That was his wife. That was Chris Hemsworth's wife.
Oh, okay.
So that's like he got a lot of his family into this film, which I mean,
that's more family members than I've gotten into a film.
Yeah, same here. I haven't gotten, unless I have famous movie stars that are in my family that I don't know about. But as far as others, so mentioning the goats, which I don't love.
Didn't love it. Nope.
So apparently they are actually called Tooth Grinder and Tooth Gnasher, and they actually are part of not only the comics but the lore,
Really?
like Norse mythology. And apparently Thor considers his goats to be good eating. So in the mythology itself, Thor actually slaughters his goats and eats them, but he is able to like resurrect them with his power. So I guess in the comics or in Norse mythology, he has the power to resurrect things.
So then you can just keep eating them?
Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
just brings them back.
So maybe if they had that scene in there, you would have liked the ghosts a little bit better.
I would have been great. It would have been great if they got rid of the ghosts.
Well, that's interesting. That's in the comic then. I thought they was just making that up.
Nope, that apparently is the thing. And also an interesting thing. Now I don't know how you felt about this. There was a moment in the film where they had this kind of like a secretary character in like the town meeting in New Asgard that's like scratching things onto a board.
Yeah.
Which another distracting joke that didn't need to be there. But his character. So apparently the diagram that he's writing on the board, it was actually supposed to be a diagram of the entire plot of the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
As an Easter egg. I don't know how anybody would notice that unless you, I guess, paused it and look at it. But I don't have enough of the desire to do that. As far as like,
You don't have a desire to pause films.
not that I don't, not with this one.
I mean, I agree with. I can relate to that. Once you hit play, it's done. It's over.
I mean, unless I have to go to the
it's going.
bathroom, like I'm not going to stop it. At least I'm not invested enough in the characters in the story to want to dive into it. Like now, if it were something like Twin Peaks or something that's surrealist, and you're like having to look for the little details, like that, I would do. I think we have time for one other bit of trivia here. Thor is the only MCU character to have 4 standalone movies.
That's true. How did he get so lucky?
I don't know, because I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Thor. I don't know why they're making him more of a central focus than any other character. But I mean, people like it, and that's fine. They're welcome to do that.
Well, I hope for those out there I hope we didn't sway anyone from watching Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought it was okay, but I do think that's kind of wrapping up the time we have for today. Tim, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd just say like, well, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Like, if you want to watch it, that's fine. Watch it. I don't know that I don't feel like it's necessary or you don't need to see it to enjoy the rest of the current phase, I don't think.
And it doesn't seem like the way it ended, Thor has a new companion now, you could say. Yes,
with his daughter. Or with Gore's daughter, because she is brought back.
Right. Spoiler alert. They so it'll be interesting to see how, like, I don't think a lot has changed. We didn't have Jane in there. Now she's still not. So yeah, nothing too major, I think, when we check in with Thor again. So but he'll have a new little companion with him. So
that might be interesting. But yeah, I would say other than that, I don't have any other particular thoughts. I don't recommend the movie.
We have no recommend. I have a sure why not. I'll rate it sure why not. Watch it.
Fair enough.
So, all right. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Nerds Now Playing. We'll watch you.
We'll watch you
Yeah, we'll
from
watch
our screens.
We'll watch you watching us. We'll check in with you again next time.
See ya.